Welcome one, welcome all to a new series I'm starting called Weird Stuff I Made When I Was Younger. Now, I've done a lot of videos about Tony Crynight Five Nights at Freddy's series recently. So, obviously, this beginning to the series is going to be, focused on that. I actually made a sequel to the Tony Crynight series way back in 2019, only a year after the series officially wrapped up. However, before we get to that, we need to kind of explain my history of the series. I'd actually conceptualized another continuation way back in the day, where Springtrap does his little proposal to Mangle. I thought the series was basically going to turn into some like spy thriller where Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy were going to have to like break into their wedding or something. Basically like Shrek or something. Now let's jump to February 2019. Why February 2019? You'll see why soon enough. I wanted to conceptualize a sequel. The problem, I actually hadn't properly seen how the series ended. In fact, I think the part that I mentioned earlier was the actual last part I saw for the longest time. So yeah, my presumed ending was that Springtrap and Fredbear, the latter of whom has no connection to Mangle at all, would be defeated, and the rest of the Amtronics would live happily ever after with no like amnesia remotes or something. Yeah, safe to say that's one of the first red flags. But anyways, let's go ahead and take a look back on this series. Season 2's storyline can really be split into 4 separate storylines. Or I guess technically 3, because Freddy, much like in Season 1, basically does nothing. It's funny because one of my biggest complaints of Season 1 now is that Freddy does not show up until the halfway point, even though it's literally called Five Nights at Freddy's. Starting off, we have Foxy and Mangle's storyline. You would expect that after everything they went through in Season 1, they'd finally get a break here. Well, guess what? No, because Foxy basically gets cucked. Okay, not really, but we get introduced to Ennard, the dude from Sister Location, and he basically becomes like a romantic rival for Foxy. Keep in mind, this was back before I considered the possibility that Springtrap actually did have feelings for Mangle, so yeah, Ennard basically tries to steal Mangle from him, but thankfully everything turns out okay. Meanwhile, with Bonnie and Chica, they go out on their first date. And you know how in my out of context spoilers post, I put a shipping meme between MatPat and Madame Macabre? Well, guess what? That actually kind of happens here. Because while they're at some club, they run into another rabbit and chicken animatronic, who are actually MatPat and Madame Macabre. Madame Macabre's, for all intents and purposes, fursona is basically just her OC, but a chicken. And MatPat's fursona is like a Shadow Bonnie, but like a dark greenish color, and he's also wearing a hoodie. Look, this was made in 2019. Do you honestly expect me to remember all the hard-boiled details? Anyways, you're probably wondering, what are Springtrap and Fredbear up to? Well, they have built Electrobab. Why do they build Electrobab? What does Electrobab do?
I don't know.
Eventually, come the midway point of the season, Freddy reassembles the Fazbear crew and basically reveals to them Springtrap's plan. How does he know? Once again, no, we're gonna play a little game I like to call Guess What Happens Next. So, how do Freddy and crew handle the whole Springtrap problem? Do they A. break into his secret lair, because yes, he has that. B. Do they lure him and Fredbear out? C. Do they get the kids from the Notebook of Doom to help them? D. Okay, come on, you already know that it's C. So yeah, the kids from the Notebook of Doom are here, And Freddy and Co. enlist them to help them break into Springtrap's secret lair. Rip, the edgy kid for all intents purposes, turns into like his monster form to battle Fredbear. And then one finally leads to another, and ultimately Springtrap and Fredbear are defeated. And then this is the part that, looking back on, just makes me wonder what the hell I was thinking back then. Do you want to know how to defeat Springtrap? I kid you not. Freddy straight up finds this random dude who's like a total big fan of the Fazbear Gang. He rips his brain out and then puts it into Springtrap.
What the fuck?
So, yeah, with Springtrap, quote unquote, reformed, the Fazbear crew decided that they needed to celebrate. Also, Foxy and Ennard put aside their differences, which is nice because, I mean, even though Ennard almost stole his girlfriend from him. And there's this big dance party ending to. Remember how I mentioned earlier this was in February 2019? Oh, yeah, that one song for the Lego Movie 2. Yeah, that is the only reason I remember when this was made. Also, with Springtrap, a good guy, I guess Fredbear and Electrobab both decide.
If you can't beat him, join him.
Apologies if there aren't going to be any more visuals, because that whole part at the end, I really want to get this done quick because I just really need some time to really think about all this and hopefully repress it. I had actually been thinking about, the potential season 3 and 4. All I know is that in season 3, Bonnie and Chica were going to get married. By season 4, they'd have kids. I think in season 4, Foxy and Mangle were going to get married. I feel like it should have been the other way around because, Fox and Mangle have been together longer than the other, Anyways, this season 2 idea thing, yeah, it is unequivocally a goddamn mess. It's basically just the equivalent of taking random things, throwing them at a wall, and seeing if they stick. But can this thing be salvaged? I actually think yes. Basically, just focus more on Ennard. Obviously, maybe you can sort of show sort of a conflict for Mangle, who is genuinely starting to fall for Ennard, but is still loyal to Foxy, even if he doesn't remember who she is. And then by the mid-season point, we can reveal that Ennard is actually a spy working for Springtrap. But then ultimately, by the end, he turns on Springtrap due to his love for Mangle and ultimately sacrifices himself for the Fazbear Gang and also allows Foxy to get his memories back. Or something. I understand it's not perfect, but I definitely think we can fix this whole thing. But anyways, that's it. I'm gonna go hopefully drink so much that I forget about this whole thing.